information. You know, if you were aiming at a steady 60 frames a second in the last generation, you would have to absolutely assure that every single frame hits that target. Whereas with G-Sync, you have a lot more wiggle room on each side because you have this kind of continuum of performance anywhere between 30 to hundreds of frames a second, where the game will continue to operate smoothly and deliver a great experience without artifacts.
That's cool. Johan, what do you think? Tell us your feelings about G-Sync, and as you think about G-Sync, what are the implications to the future of gaming, and how would you develop games differently?
It's pretty awesome. It's really, it changes the perception quite a bit, and I was really surprised by that. But when you actually see it in action, which people here will do, is the best possible experience you get before in games. If you're running 100 FPS in a game, typically without G-Sync that people do, that's sort of what we used to in the best possible type of experience. But with this, well, you don't. It's completely changes the actual perception of the picture. You see a continuous stream of something that your mind actually interprets as a moving picture, and I really like that. I was surprised by how my mind actually interpreted the information, and when we tried it out and just had more and more people in our studio just testing it, everyone just came out with the same experience there. That's really quite amazing.
What do you think is going to happen to game development if this becomes widespread technology?
I think one thing that has not really been reflected in games, Tim was into a little bit of we design games for a certain specific budget, but games nowadays are not really the games you played 15 years ago or even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Games now are these massive experiences of very different types of environments that you have in your game, and sometimes you have a cutscene, and sometimes you have a giant star field that you're traveling through, and sometimes you have massive amounts of explosions, and it's essentially impossible to design a game for a fixed frame rate today. And you don't really want to make massive compromises in all areas. Even if we think our overall game runs at 60 FPS, we will have to run rather around 14 milliseconds perhaps, leave a little bit of budget for things that we can't really predict in our environments. And with this, well, you don't really need to do it in the same way. Sure, you probably don't want to jump too much in frame rate, but if the storytelling and the actual game experiences are adapted for it, and with this technology, it's actually much easier to create the games that you actually want, the experiences you want, and still get a really good picture out of the mind interprets in a very nice way.
That's really cool. Well, you know, there are so few people who are as fanatical about displays as John. And the reason for that is because he's putting them awfully close to his eyes these days. And when he saw it, he wanted to come out and share his opinion with you guys and his first reaction to you guys. John, what do you think? And what do you think is going to happen as a result of this
for years the
technology?
PC space has had a willful blind spot to the artifacts of tearing and judder, where we can talk and try to get people excited about these relatively subtle effects like gamma correction and subsurface scattering and some of these things that we can spend tons of gigaflops on and kind of point out and split, say this is really important, while blinding, covering our eyes over this huge tear line racing up and down the screen, this really fairly egregious artifact. And yeah, I've been a lot more sensitive about this for a long time. We did make the decision to make those compromises on our last title to be 60 frames per second, which meant that we did have this 15-20% cushion that we had to leave there to make sure that we wouldn't exceed that we would only very rarely wind up missing that, which meant that for any given amount of processing power that we targeted for, maybe 20% or more, in many cases a lot more, was just left completely unused because we were at the maximum frame rate. We were at 60 frames per second, and that was important for the smoothness that it gave us, but we had to make a lot of compromises to make that happen. And being able to use all the graphics power that you've got, to unlock it from 60, to open up towards the higher frame rates, and to be able to make it a smooth continuum there, rather than dropping from 60 down to 30 in one huge lurch, or suffering the stuttering, or suffering the tearing, it's just a better experience. And almost every single game can benefit from this, where being able to go over 60 frames per second winds up bringing in additional benefits. And once we start crossing some of the magic numbers above like 90, 95, heading towards 120, then we start enabling the low persistence mode and some of these things that add additional benefits that you haven't even seen here today. So I mean, the G-Sync technology involves not just the variable refresh, but also some of the low persistence modes, which will have additional benefits as games start moving towards those higher frame rates. But the only way we're going to get games towards those higher frame rates is by having this smooth incremental path. I mean, yeah, we could ship an old game remade like Doom 3 BFG that could run at 120 frames per second, but the only way you're going to start seeing absolute modern AAA titles is if they can creep up and have 60, then 70, then somebody's got a reason to put in some crazy dual SLI system that's going to go ahead and spend another $500 on the video cards, but oh my god, it runs this at 120 frames per second, low persistence, that's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you know what we're going to do here is this. I know you guys, I know I do. Just want to sit back, put these three guys up here, and just blast questions at them. Isn't that right? Would you agree with that? Okay? And so here's what we're going to do. I've got so many questions for these guys. Let's do this. Let's finish. We have one more announcement to make. And right after that, we'll have these guys come back, and we'll sit down. Is that the game plan? My boss is Cheryl, right? Okay, that's the game plan. We're gonna have you guys come. We're gonna have you guys come back. We're gonna skip lunch. Are you kidding me? Just so you guys know, these guys flew in just to say that about GSync, just to let you guys know how excited they are about GSync, how important this is to the future of video games. We're so appreciative that you guys are here, but you guys know that while you guys are here, we're gonna suck your brain dry of just about every possible thing we can possibly learn about the future of gaming and the future of graphics. So why don't you guys come back in a little moment, okay? Thank you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nvidia GSync.